of the most senior consultant surgeons in the Gaza Strip, and he's living under a piece of tarpaulin in a bombed out building. So imagine what it's like for those that, you know, have got nothing.
Yeah. How many kids you saw without parents?
It's very difficult to know the figures, how many orphans there are, but I mean, I imagine it must be thousands. I mean, there's somewhere in the region, I think, of over 2,000 families that have been completely wiped out. But by that, I don't mean, you know, a mother, father, and 2 kids. I'm talking about the whole family tree. So nobody of that name is left. So each time we're talking about several hundred people. And those units, you know, I think there's somewhere like 2,000 have just been wiped off the civil register because they no longer exist. The number of children, I really don't know, and I don't know whether we'll ever know, to be honest. But certainly you see it on a very regular occasion. Again, going back to October 23, I remember a young child with about 30% burn injuries, and you know, they'd spent 2 days under the rubble with 30% burns and other wounds before they were able to be extracted. And they were extracted, you know, and the whole of their family had been wiped out completely. So, you know, you have a 8-year-old child or something who just in an instant has lost his whole family. And you know, that's unfortunately not an uncommon occurrence. And perhaps one of the, I mean, it's just an example. It's not even necessarily the worst example, but it's one very poignant example. Was in June, I guess it would have been, in the Nassau hospital where I was working. There was a paediatrician who was on duty, and her husband was an anaesthetist, and they both worked in the hospital. She was on duty in the hospital, and her husband was at home with their 10 children, and their property got hit by an airstrike, and 9 of the children were carbonized, and you know, carbonized. When the first aid and the ambulance service went to get them, literally it was like picking bits of wood out of a fireplace. And the son, the remaining son, and his father were admitted to the hospital where his mum was working. His father then died 3 days later on intensive care from massive brain injury. So, you know, you've gone from 2 parents and 10 children to 1 parent and 1 child, and 1 child with quite significant injuries, open arm fracture, nerve injuries. I'm pleased to say that child is now actually in Italy. In fact, I heard from him yesterday, and he had a further operation yesterday to try and reconstruct some of his nerves. And he's an astonishing, I mean, I only saw him sort of on the operating table or in the anaesthetic room, and you know, I never heard him talk when I was there. And we just did the sort of initial treatment and sort of stabilised him and stuff. But you know, I then heard him talk when he's in, and he speaks fluent English. He's extremely intelligent. And the message he sent yesterday, he's now going to school in Italy and learning Italian, which I'm sure he'll pick up very quickly. It was just full of praise and thanks and gratitude, you know, just to everyone that had helped him. And you think, you've lost every one of your brothers and sisters, and your father, and your house, and your homeland, and you're still just thanking everybody for what they've done for you, you know. And I think we can learn a lot from children.